The repair ship Aurora Trail drifted toward the glowing rings of the planet Velura. The world looked like a marble of green clouds and golden storms beneath the shining twin moons. From a distance, the planet seemed peaceful, but everyone on the human vessel knew the truth. The Veloran orbital station had been struck by a meteor storm, leaving its power systems unstable. Inside the main bay of the Aurora Trail, the repair crew prepared for docking. Wires, tools, and metal crates surrounded them. The air smelled faintly of coolant and burnt circuits. At the center of the team stood Mark, a young engineer with a quiet confidence. He had short dark hair, steady eyes, and a habit of smiling even when things looked bad. He checked the docking panel again. "Power grid is still unstable," he said to the ship's pilot. "Lena, if the station's core fails, we'll have to do manual rerouting." Lena sighed. "Always manual with you, Mark. Why can't things ever be easy?" "Because easy doesn't make heroes," Mark replied, trying to sound lighthearted. The others chuckled softly. Despite the tension, his humor always kept them calm. The humans were visiting Velura, not only to fix the damage, but also to strengthen the new alliance between the two civilizations. Velura was one of the first alien empires to agree to trade in peace with Earth, though not everyone on either side supported it. When the Aurora Trail finally docked, the large hangar doors of the Veloran station opened with a deep, metallic hum. The interior was vast, glowing with blue light from crystal conduits that lined the walls. Strange symbols moved like water across digital panels. The Veloran guards stood in formation, their armor sleek and shining, their faces hidden behind silver masks. Mark stepped forward with his small repair team, trying to act formal. He could feel the eyes of the alien soldiers watching their every move. Humans were still rare here, and the Velorans' tall figures and elegant posture made them look like creatures born from light itself. Then she appeared. Princess Lyra of Velora entered the hangar with calm grace. She was tall, slender, and her skin shimmered faintly with a silver tone under the lights. Her eyes were bright blue, almost glowing, and her long hair looked like strands of moonlight. She wore a ceremonial robe made of soft white fabric, trimmed with gold. Every guard bowed as she passed. Mark tried to look respectful, but curiosity won over discipline. He had never seen a Veluran royal before. She looked both gentle and fierce, like someone who carried the weight of worlds. A Veloran commander spoke first. "Welcome, humans. You will begin your repairs at once. The princess is here to oversee the safety of her people and the success of the operation." Mark gave a small salute. "Understood. We'll start at the main conduit chamber." As the teams began unloading tools, Mark's gaze met Alaris for the first time. Her expression was unreadable, calm yet sharp. She studied him as though she were examining a new kind of life form. He felt his heart skip for a reason he didn't want to admit. When she turned to inspect the damaged power lines nearby, Mark and his crew followed to assess the problem. The massive power core room looked like a cathedral filled with glowing energy streams. Some conduits were shattered from the meteor impacts, their crystal interiors leaking faint light into the air. "Careful around that junction," Mark warned his team. The charge could still be active. One of the Veloran guards gave him a cold glance. "Do not speak so freely near the princess," the guard said. Mark lifted his hand slightly. "Just making sure no one gets fried." The guard frowned, but said nothing more. Alira moved closer to the damaged area, her calm voice cutting through the silence. "Human engineer, can your people stabilize the flow within the day?" Mark nodded. "Yes, Your Highness, but it will take some adjustments. We'll need access to the lower conduits." "You have it," she replied simply. Mark smiled lightly. "Thank you, Princess." When she turned to leave, he whispered under his breath, "Looking good, Princess." He hadn't meant for her to hear it, but her head snapped back sharply. Her glowing eyes locked onto his. "Careful, human," she said. Her voice calm, but edged with authority. The air between them froze. The nearby guard stiffened. Mark realized too late that his human habit of teasing had just crossed an invisible line. He opened his mouth to explain, but no words came out. Alara's gaze lingered on him a moment longer before she turned away. "Return to your work," she said, walking toward the lift with her guards. Mark exhaled slowly, rubbing the back of his neck. Lena whispered beside him. "You really just said that to a princess?" He shrugged awkwardly. It slipped. The rest of the crew laughed quietly, trying not to draw attention. Mark forced a smile, but inside he felt his pulse pounding. Something about her voice, the way she had looked at him, stayed in his mind. Hours passed as they worked. The station groaned under its own weight, and the hum of the unstable energy made the air feel charged. Mark climbed through narrow tunnels, checking every cable. He tried to focus on his job. The image of Alera's eyes wouldn't leave him as the night cycle began. The lights dimmed to soft blue. Mark sat by a maintenance panel, checking readings on his tablet. Through a nearby viewport, he could see Valora Below's golden clouds swirling like waves of fire and silk. He thought about how strange it was to be here, surrounded by beings who barely trusted humans, working to fix a system built by alien technology, older than Earth's history. Yet even in that distance, something about this place felt right to him. A sound behind him made him turn. Alera stood near the entrance, her robe flowing lightly as she stepped into the room. 2 guards waited outside, but she had come in alone. "Human," she said softly, her tone no longer sharp. "You are still working." Mark rose to his feet quickly. "Yes, Princess. The circuits are more complex than I expected. We're close to stabilizing the grid." She moved closer, looking over his shoulder at the glowing screens. "Your people work with great focus," she said. "You do not tire easily." He smiled a little. "We try our best. Hard work is kind of our thing." Her lips curved slightly, almost into a smile, but she looked away. "Velerans value precision over speed. Perhaps we can learn from your persistence." Mark dared to meet her gaze. "And maybe we can learn a bit of your patience." Lyra studied him quietly. The earlier tension had faded, replaced by a strange calm. The silence between them felt less heavy now. After a moment, she asked, "Do all humans speak so boldly to those above them?" "Not all," he said, rubbing the back of his neck. "Some of us just forget who's watching." Her eyes glimmered faintly. "Then perhaps you should remember. Some among my people do not take kindly to such words." He nodded. "I'll be careful next time." Alera gave a slight nod and began to leave. But before stepping through the door, she paused. "Your work is appreciated, Mark of Earth." He blinked in surprise. "You know my name?" She turned halfway, her silver hair catching the light. "I learned the names of those who risked their lives to help mine." Then she left, the door closing silently behind her. Mark stood there for a long moment, unsure what to think. The same words she had used earlier, careful, human, echoed in his head, but now they sounded different. Not cold, not distant, but curious. He sat back down and looked through the window again. The stars over Valura glowed brighter than any he had seen from Earth. He felt something stir in him, something he couldn't explain. By the time the rest of the crew returned from their shift, he was still awake, replaying the moment in his mind. Lena noticed the look on his face and smiled knowingly. "Thinking about your royal friend?" She teased. "She's not my friend," he said quickly. "She's just interesting." Lena laughed. "If you say so." Mark tried to ignore her and went back to his readings, but deep down he knew Lena was right. Something had changed. That night, the human crew slept in the visitor quarters while the Velerons continued patrols. Mark lay awake, listening to the hum of the station. He thought about how a single word, a single look, could feel more powerful than a battle. He closed his eyes, unaware that somewhere across the station, Princess Alera stood on her balcony looking out at the same stars. Her thoughts lingered on the strange human who had made her react in a way she could not understand. For the first time in many years, she felt something unexpected, curiosity mixed with warmth. And far below, the planet of Valura continued to shine, holding the silent beginning of a bond that neither of them yet understood. The next morning, the station lights brightened to a soft gold tone. The human crew woke early to resume work on the damaged conduits. Outside the station windows, fragments of the meteor storm still floated in orbit like a glowing river of dust. It looked beautiful, but dangerous. Mark stood near the main power room, holding a scanner and reviewing data. He could tell the system was stabilizing slowly, but there were still many weak points. The station had taken heavy hits, and one more impact could break the energy core completely. Lena joined him, holding a mug of synth coffee. "You did not sleep much," she said. Mark nodded. "Could not. The system kept showing false readings. I had to check everything twice." "You mean you kept thinking about the princess?" she teased with a grin. He sighed. "Please do not start that again." Lena laughed and walked away to help the others. Mark shook his head, trying to focus, but deep inside, he knew she was not entirely wrong. He kept remembering Alara's calm voice, her cold warning, and the brief smile she gave later. He could not decide if she scared him or fascinated him. While the humans worked, Alara arrived again, surrounded by her guards and advisors. Her presence filled the chamber with quiet authority. Every worker stopped for a moment when she entered. Her long robe shimmered like flowing light, and the blue glow of the conduits reflected off her silver skin. "Status report," she said. Mark straightened. "We have restored power to 70% of the station, Princess. The lower levels still need work, but we are close." Alara looked around, inspecting every display. "You work quickly for a species so new to interstellar engineering. We like a challenge." Her gaze turned to him. "Do you always smile when things are uncertain?" "It helps," he replied. "Keeps fear away." She studied him for a moment, then gave a small nod. Perhaps that is why humans survive so much. Before he could reply, an alarm blared across the hall. Red lights flashed. The sound of distant rumbling echoed through the metal walls. One of the Valoran officers shouted, "Another meteor cluster approaching fast. Impact in 3 minutes." Alara turned sharply. "Seal all external gates. Divert power to shields." Mark ran to his console. "I can boost the shield output, but I need access to the main regulator." "The regulator is in the upper conduit ring," said a Valoran guard. "It is unsafe." Mark grabbed his toolkit. "Then it is where I need to go." Before anyone could stop him, he ran toward the lift. The floor shook beneath his feet as smaller impacts rattled the station. Sparks fell from overhead wires. The sound of metal groaning filled the air. Alara followed quickly, ignoring her guard's protests. "Human, you will not go alone." Mark looked back at her. "It is dangerous up there." "So is standing here," she replied. "If the shield fails, everyone dies." He hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "All right, Princess. Try to keep up." The lift rose through the levels, shaking as debris hit the outer hull. The glass walls showed flashes of light outside where meteors streaked by like burning stars. Alara stood beside Mark, calm but tense. Her hand rested on a small device at her belt that glowed faintly. When they reached the upper conduit ring, the hallway was dark. Power flickered from broken lines, and the air smelled of ozone. Loose panels floated slightly as the artificial gravity wavered. Mark crouched by a control unit, opening its side panel. "I need to reroute the flow manually," he said. "Hold the light steady." Alara lifted her wrist, projecting a beam from her bracelet. The pale glow reflected off her face. She watched as he worked quickly, connecting and sealing cables. His fingers moved fast, steady, despite the shaking floor. Another explosion sounded below. The lights blinked out for a second, leaving only the beam from her bracelet. In that moment, she saw the focus in his eyes. Humans were strange to her. They lacked the calm discipline of Velarans, yet they faced chaos with courage. "Why do you risk yourself?" she asked. Mark did not look up. "Because it is my job. Because it matters. To save others who are not your kind." She asked again. He smiled faintly. "Life is life. Doesn't matter where it is from." Her eyes softened, but before she could reply, a massive tremor hit. The ceiling cracked, and a heavy beam fell toward them. Mark grabbed her and pulled her down as the beam smashed into the floor beside them. Dust filled the air. Alara's heart raced. She looked at him in surprise. "You shielded me," he said, coughing. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head. No, but the core is destabilizing. He stood up, brushing off debris. Then we fix it. Together they moved to the next panel. Mark's gloves sparked as he rewired the last link. Energy surged through the conduits, lighting the room in blue light. The station groaned again, but began to steady. Alara checked her wrist communicator. Shield integrity rising to 80%, she said with relief. You did it. You did it, Mark corrected. Before she could answer, the power flickered once more, and the lift controls sparked. The system overloaded, sealing them inside the upper ring. The doors jammed shut. Perfect, Mark muttered. We are locked in. Lyra tested the door with her energy blade, but the alloy was too thick. Emergency power will take time to reset. Then we wait, he said, sitting down against the wall. The storm outside continued. Through the viewing glass, the meteors streaked by, burning in the planet's glow. The light from them filled the dark chamber with a warm, flickering hue. For a long moment, neither spoke. The sound of the storm and the pulse of the energy lines were the only things they heard. Finally, Alara broke the silence. You humans act without hesitation. It confuses me. Mark looked up. Confuses you how? You rush into danger without knowing if you will live. You trust strangers. You speak without fear, even to a royal. Yet somehow, it works for you. He smiled lightly. Maybe we are just stubborn. Alara gave a small laugh, her first true laugh since the humans arrived. The sound surprised even her. You are strange creatures. I will take that as a compliment, he said. She looked at him for a long moment. Perhaps it is one. Another silence fell. But it was different now. The tension between them had faded. The flickering lights made the moment feel unreal, like time had slowed. Your home? Alara asked softly. What is it like? Mark leaned his head back. Blue skies, green forests, oceans that stretch forever. Sometimes peaceful, sometimes not, but always alive. It sounds beautiful. It is, he said. Maybe one day you will see it. She turned her gaze toward the stars. Perhaps. The storm began to fade slowly. The tremors quieted, and the alarm stopped. Through the window, they could see the golden clouds of Velura shining below. Alara rose and pressed her hand against the glass. My people believe the light of Velura protects us. When the clouds glow, it means life continues. Mark stood beside her. Then it is a good sign. She looked at him, her voice softer. You risked yourself again today? You could have stayed below, but you came here. He shrugged. Could not let a whole station fall apart. That would make us bad guess. Her lips curved slightly. You speak lightly even in danger. Maybe I just like making you smile, he said, before realizing what he had said aloud. Alara blinked, a hint of color rising to her cheeks, or whatever the Velaran version of that was. You are bold again. Sorry, he said quickly. Do not be, she replied quietly. It is unexpected. Before anything more could be said, the lift powered back on with a hum. Alara turned away, regaining her calm composure. The systems are restored. We should return. Mark nodded. After you, Princess. They descended back to the main deck, where the crew and guards were waiting. Cheers rose, as they saw the lights returning to full power. Lena ran to Mark. You are alive. I thought the upper ring blew apart. Close enough, Mark said with a tired grin. Alara faced her guards. Begin full system check. No one leaves their post until I give word. Then she looked back at Mark. Your actions were reckless but effective. You have my thanks. He bowed slightly. Glad to be of help, Princess. She hesitated for a moment before adding, Next time, be more careful, human. Mark smiled at the familiar words. I will try. She walked away. The faintest trace of amusement showed on her face. For a brief second, she glanced back at him, her eyes reflecting the starlight. That night, when the storm finally ended and peace returned to the station, Mark stood near the viewport again. The golden clouds of Velura glowed gently below, and he could almost feel the heartbeat of the planet through the glass. Somewhere on another deck, Princess Alara stood on her balcony, looking out at the same stars. Her thoughts wandered toward the human, who had risked everything to protect her world. The distance between them was still great. But something had begun to change, something neither of them could name. The calm that followed the meteor storm lasted only a few days. The station was now fully operational, and the repair teams worked steadily under Mark's guidance. The humans were admired by many Velerons for their dedication. Even though some whispered that outsiders could never truly understand the delicate systems of their world, Princess Alera observed the repairs from her balcony. She often watched Mark and his team with quiet interest. There was something in the way he moved among the conduits that reminded her of bravery she rarely saw in outsiders. Most humans acted on instinct, but he seemed to balance instinct with intelligence. One morning, as Mark reviewed the energy flow charts for the lower conduits, a Veluran messenger arrived. Alera's eyes darkened as she read the message. It was written in a secret code used only in the royal court. She handed it to her chief advisor, but her expression betrayed her worry. Mark noticed her tense stance. "Princess, is everything all right?" he asked cautiously. Alera straightened, masking her concern. "Nothing that requires your attention at this moment. Continue with your work." But Mark could tell something was wrong. Her usually composed demeanor had a slight tremor, and her eyes darted to the corridors as if she feared someone unseen. As the day progressed, Alera withdrew from the public observation areas and retreated to her private chambers. Mark and Lena noticed the change, whispering among themselves. "She is worried about something," Lena said. "Seems serious," Mark replied, frowning. "I hope it does not involve the station itself." Later that day, the station alarms began to sound again, but this time the source was not external. The Veluran security team had discovered unauthorized access to the station's data cores. Someone had tampered with the files containing the peace treaty and energy management protocols. Alera summoned Mark to the command room. "Human engineer, I need your help," she said, her voice calm but urgent. Mark approached quickly. "What is the problem?" "The core files have been tampered with. It appears someone within my court is trying to sabotage the treaty with Earth," she explained. Mark's eyes widened. "A saboteur inside, how?" Alera's gaze was steady. "We do not know." "That is why I need someone I can trust, and I will help," he said without hesitation. Her eyebrows lifted slightly. "You are sure?" "This task is dangerous, and it is more than simple engineering. You will have to navigate secret corridors, avoid detection, and confront someone who does not fear harming you." "I am sure," Mark said, gripping his toolkit tighter. That night, Alera and Mark moved through the station together, taking hidden routes that most Velerans would not know. Her energy blade glowed faintly, lighting their way through the dark halls. Every corridor echoed their footsteps. Mark noticed the small details she used to navigate, symbols etched into the walls, tiny cracks in the flooring, and hidden panels that allowed access to maintenance tunnels. He marveled at her knowledge of the station's secret pathways. "This way," Alera whispered, leading him down a narrow metallic stairwell. "The saboteur will attempt to reach the lower core. We must intercept before they cause a breach." Mark nodded. "I follow you." They moved silently until they reached the core chamber. The heavy doors were partially open. Through the crack, Mark could see a shadow moving quickly among the equipment. Sparks flew as the saboteur attempted to hack the systems. "Stop!" Alera shouted. The figure froze and turned. A tall Veloran, in ceremonial armor, stared back at them, eyes cold and furious. "You should not be here, Princess," he said. "And you, human, are an unwelcome guest." Mark stepped forward. "We are here to protect this station. Stop or face consequences." The Veloran sneered and lunged toward the control panel, attempting to trigger an overload that would destroy the lower conduits. Mark acted immediately. He leapt forward, sliding across the floor and grabbing the saboteur's arm. Sparks flew from the exposed wires as he tried to stop the sabotage. Alera raised her energy blade and formed a protective barrier around them. The air crackled with energy as the saboteur struck at the barrier with raw force. Mark's mind raced. He disconnected one wire, then another, following the patterns he had memorized during the day. Sweat dripped down his forehead, but he did not falter. "You cannot stop me," the saboteur shouted. "Yes, I can," Mark replied firmly, and with a final, careful move, he cut the last active wire. The surge of energy dissipated harmlessly. Leaving the room quiet except for their heavy breathing, Alira lowered her barrier, her gaze on Mark. "You saved the station. And perhaps more than that," she said softly. Mark wiped his hands on his uniform. "We make a good team, Princess." For the first time, Alira allowed a small, genuine smile to appear. Perhaps the saboteur, realizing his plan had failed, tried to escape, but Alira moved swiftly. Her energy blade formed a luminous net that trapped him. The prisoner struggled, but could not break free. Mark watched, impressed by her precision and strength. He had seen courage before, but Alira's control of her power was extraordinary. She did not attack recklessly. Every movement was calculated, every strike purposeful. "We must bring him to the security cells," she said. Mark nodded, and together they escorted the saboteur through the hidden corridors. The prisoner muttered angrily, but could do nothing against their combined skill. Once the saboteur was secured, Alira turned to Mark. "I underestimated you," she admitted. "Humans may be unpredictable, but you have proven bravery and skill. Perhaps there is more to your kind than I assumed." Mark smiled faintly. "I am glad I could help. That is all I ever want to do." They walked back to the upper chambers where the other humans were stationed. Mark noticed the crew looking at him differently. They had always respected him, but now they seemed to admire his courage. Lena approached him. "I knew you could handle it, but that was impressive even for you." "Thanks," Mark said. "Could not have done it without the princess." Alira watched from a distance, her expression thoughtful. She had seen humans in conflict, humans making mistakes and learning from them. But Mark was different. He combined caution with courage, thought quickly under pressure, and maintained a calm humor even in the most dangerous moments. That evening, after the incident was fully reported to the Valuran Council, Mark found a quiet moment on a balcony overlooking Valora's glowing clouds. The planet shimmered under the twin moons, reflecting gold and green lights onto the station. The beauty was overwhelming. Alira joined him quietly. She did not speak immediately. Instead, she stood beside him, looking down at the swirling clouds. Finally, she said, "Your people are unlike anything I imagined. You are persistent, clever, and surprisingly calm when faced with disaster." Mark looked at her. "You think that is a compliment?" "It is," she said firmly. "You saved my station today, and you did so without hesitation. That is more than most would manage." Mark's pulse quickened, not from fear this time, but from the weight of her praise. "Thank you, Princess. That means more than you might know." Alira glanced at him briefly, then turned back to the view. "I will admit, I was wrong to doubt humans. Some of you are capable of great courage and loyalty." Mark smiled, feeling a strange warmth in his chest. "I will keep doing my best. For you, for the station, and for your people." She said nothing more, but her presence remained calm and steady. The stars reflected in her eyes, as if she too was considering the possibilities that this new bond might bring. As the night deepened, the station quieted. The lower corridors hummed with restored energy, and the security systems monitored every corner. Mark returned to his quarters, but sleep did not come easily. His thoughts kept returning to Alira, her calm authority, her subtle smile, and the way she had trusted him during the crisis. Across the station, Princess Alira remained on her balcony, her mind racing. She had always been cautious, wary of outsiders, and trained to trust only her people. But Mark's actions had shown her something different: courage, loyalty, and the unexpected warmth of humanity. Both of them, though worlds apart in culture and origin, felt a bond forming that neither could yet define. A bond created not by words or promises, but by actions in the heat of danger and shared determination to protect what mattered most. The night passed. The first light of Valora's twin moons began to fade. The station buzzed with life as humans and Velorans prepared for another day of repairs and diplomacy. Yet beneath the routine, something quiet and unspoken connected to hearts across the chaos of space. Mark looked at the rising light, feeling a strange hope he could not explain. Somewhere, he knew Alara was thinking of him too, and the thought brought a small, steady smile to his face. The events of the day had changed them both. The threat had passed, but the spark remained, a spark that would guide them through future challenges. Forging a bond stronger than fear, doubt, or even distance. For now, the station was safe. The saboteur was contained, and in the quiet between the stars, two lives had intertwined in a way that would echo across Velura and beyond. Mark did not know what the future held, but one thing was clear. He would face it with courage, with humor, and with the princess by his side whenever destiny allowed. And Princess Alara, for the first time in years, felt that perhaps the humans she had once doubted might hold the key to something greater, a bond that could unite two worlds and change the fate of many. The station had returned to normal operations, but an invisible tension lingered. The saboteur's arrest had brought temporary relief, yet Princess Alara knew that danger still lurked among her own ranks. Trust was fragile, and any mistake could undo the fragile alliance with Earth. Mark spent the morning supervising the final checks on the station's conduits. He moved quickly, verifying every panel and rerouting power as needed. The crew had grown to rely on his steady hands and clear judgment. Even Lena, who had teased him countless times, worked quietly beside him. Pressed by his focus, Alara entered the main chamber, accompanied by her guards. Her expression was calm but sharp. She moved with authority, and every eye in the room followed her. "Human," she said, addressing Mark directly. "The saboteur was only part of a larger plan. There is someone else, someone higher in my court, who seeks to destabilize the alliance. We must confront them." Mark's jaw tightened. "Do we know who it is?" She shook her head. "Not yet. But I have reason to believe it is a commander who has long opposed humans. He is cunning and dangerous." Mark's pulse quickened. "Then we need a plan." Alara studied him. "We act together. You will follow my lead, but your instincts will be necessary. Do not underestimate him." The human crew gathered their tools and accompanied them as Alara led the way through secret corridors. The station was quiet, almost too quiet, as if it sensed the approaching danger. Every shadow seemed alive. Every flicker of light made Mark's heart race. When they reached the lower core chamber, the doors were sealed with energy barriers. Beyond them, faint shadows moved. The commander had anticipated their arrival. "He waits," Alara whispered. "Prepare yourself, human." Mark gripped his tools, ready to act. "I am ready." The doors slid open slowly, revealing the Veluran commander standing in the center of the chamber. His armor gleamed, and his eyes burned with anger. He held a control device in his hands, ready to overload the conduits. "You should not have come, princess," the commander said. "And you, human, are in my way." "Yeah?" Mark stepped forward. "We are here to protect the station." "Stand down," the commander laughed coldly. "Protection is weakness. You will see that today." Alara raised her energy blade, forming a protective barrier around herself and Mark. Sparks of energy flickered across the floor as the commander struck at the barrier. Mark acted quickly, moving among the conduits to prevent overloads. His hands worked with speed and precision, disconnecting dangerous circuits and rerouting power flows. Every move he made was calculated, every decision crucial. The commander attacked again, his strikes fueled by anger and skill. Alara met each attack with grace, her blade cutting through the air with light and precision. The room glowed with the clash of energy, and the hum of the conduits vibrated through the floor. Mark noticed the weak points in the commander's approach. He called out to Alara, "Shift left. Divert power to the side conduit." She nodded, adjusting her stance. The barrier shifted, absorbing the impact of the commander's strike. Sparks flew across the room, illuminating their determined faces. Despite the chaos, Mark remained focused. He knew that one mistake could destroy the station and everyone inside. He moved closer to the energy core, identifying the circuits that could stop the commander's overload. "Now, princess!" Mark shouted. Alara struck with a burst of energy, pushing the commander back. Simultaneously, Mark disconnected the critical circuits, preventing the overload. The surge of energy dissipated harmlessly, and the commander stumbled, realizing his plan had failed. "You cannot win," Mark said, standing firm. The commander's eyes narrowed. He lunged toward Mark with raw force, but Alara intervened. Her energy blade extended like a net, catching the commander and holding him in place. Mark approached cautiously. "He is contained," he said. Alara looked at him, her eyes reflecting relief and admiration. "You were fearless," she said softly, "and precise. I did not expect such skill from a human." Mark shrugged. "I told you, we try our best." The commander struggled, but Alara's blade held firm. She signaled to the guards, who arrived to take him into custody. The threat was neutralized, and the station was finally safe. As the room quieted, Alara turned to Mark. "Why do you risk your life for others?" she asked, her voice calm but filled with curiosity. Mark smiled faintly. "Because it matters. Because lives are worth protecting." Alara studied him for a moment, then nodded. "Perhaps humans have qualities my people have forgotten. Courage, loyalty, and a willingness to act even when the outcome is uncertain." Mark's pulse quickened. "And perhaps Velerons have qualities we can learn from as well. Discipline, precision, and focus." She gave a small, approving nod. "You are correct. Together, we are stronger than either alone." The station hum of energy returned to normal, and the crew began restoring minor damage caused by the confrontation. Mark worked alongside them, but he kept glancing at Alara. Her calm presence, her strength, and her quiet admiration for his actions left a lasting impression on him. Later, when the repairs were complete, Alara invited Mark to join her on the observation deck. The twin moons of Velura hung low in the sky, casting silver and gold reflections across the glowing clouds. The view was breathtaking, and both of them stood in silence for a moment. "Absorbing the beauty, you were brave today," she said. "Breaking the quiet, you made it easier," he replied. Her lips curved into a faint smile. "I have learned to trust humans more than I thought possible." Mark laughed softly. "I am glad to hear that. I think we make a good team." Alara looked at him, her eyes reflecting the starlight. "Perhaps. Your courage and my knowledge. Together, we are unstoppable." Mark felt a surge of pride, but also a strange warmth in his chest. "Then I hope we continue working together, Princess," she nodded. "We will. There are still many challenges ahead. But today has shown me that trust and courage can overcome even the greatest threats." For a long moment, they stood together, looking at the planet below. The golden clouds swirled peacefully, the storms having passed, leaving a calm and steady glow. "You changed more than just the station today," Mark Alara said quietly. He raised an eyebrow. "How so?" "You reminded me that courage is not just about strength. It is about heart, determination, and the willingness to act even when fear exists. You have reminded me of the importance of trust, even with those we do not fully understand." Mark smiled. "I am glad I could help. That is all I ever hoped to do." Alara's gaze softened. "You have done more than hope. You have made a difference." The moment was quiet but meaningful. The bond between human and princess had grown stronger, formed not by words alone, but by action, courage, and trust. As night settled over the station, Mark returned to his quarters. He thought about the events of the day, the fight with the commander, and the princess's words. For the first time, he understood that courage was not just about physical strength, but about doing what was right, even when it was dangerous or uncertain. Meanwhile, Alara remained on her balcony, looking out at the swirling clouds below. She thought about the human who had fought beside her, who had risked everything to protect her. Station and her people. Their paths had crossed under circumstances neither could have predicted. Yet, through shared danger and mutual respect, they had formed a bond that would continue to grow. The stars above Velura shone bright, reflecting off the clouds and the station. Somewhere in the vastness of space, lives human and Velerine had begun a partnership that neither would forget, for now. The station was safe, the threat had been neutralized, and the humans and Velerons had learned to trust each other more deeply. But beyond the safety of the station, challenges remained. The galaxy was vast and unpredictable. Other dangers awaited, and both Mark and Alara knew they would face them together. Stronger for the bond they had formed as Mark drifted into sleep. He dreamed not of danger or repairs, but of the calm, silver glow of Velura and the faint smile of a princess who had shown him trust, courage, in the beginning of a bond that could change the future of two worlds. And somewhere across the station, Princess Alira too drifted into thought, imagining the human who had risked everything. She realized that courage, loyalty, the willingness to act even in fear were qualities that could unite not just individuals, but worlds. The night ended quietly. The storms had passed. The stars shone brightly, and a new chapter in the story of human and Veloran friendship and trust had begun. The sky of Xeria shimmered with pale blue and soft pink light as the sun began to set. Floating islands hovered above the deep green forests, and the wind carried a faint hum that seemed alive. Nilo stood at the edge of one of the islands, his feet balanced carefully on the uneven stone. His heart raced, not from fear, but from the strange mixture of excitement and worry. Beside him, Mara adjusted her armor, her eyes scanning the horizon for any sign of danger. The rival faction had grown stronger, and they knew that the artifact must be protected at all costs. Nilo glanced at Mara. She looked as fierce as ever, her sharp gaze focused and ready. He took a deep breath and forced a small smile. He wanted to ease the tension between them. "Looking good, princess?" he teased lightly, his tone playful. Mara immediately snapped, her eyes narrowing. But there was a flicker of something softer behind her stern expression. "Careful, human," she said, her voice firm yet not unkind. Nilo's pulse spiked. Her voice always had that effect on him. He had fought countless battles and faced unimaginable dangers. But a single word from Mara could unsettle him more than anything else. He straightened his posture, reminding himself that focus was needed now more than ever. The enemy came faster than they expected. Ships with jagged edges and dark energy engines tore through the air, cutting through the wind with sharp precision. Mara's eyes widened, and she grabbed Nilo's arm, pulling him behind a boulder for cover. The sound of energy blasts and the hum of alien machinery filled the air. "We need to move the artifact," Mara shouted over the noise. "It cannot fall into their hands." Nilo nodded. The artifact, glowing faintly with a soft golden light, was strapped to his back. It pulsed gently, almost as if it sensed the danger. Nilo felt its warmth spread through him, filling him with energy and determination. He had never felt anything like it before. Mara surveyed the battlefield quickly. "We need a plan. You and I will distract them, while the others take the artifact to safety. Can you handle that?" Nilo grinned. "I was born ready." The two of them leaped from their cover, landing on a higher ledge of the floating island. Mara drew her dual blades, and Nilo activated his energy shield. They were an unlikely pair, but together, their strengths complemented each other perfectly. Mara's speed and skill in close combat, combined with Nilo's clever tactics and adaptability, made them nearly unstoppable. The enemy forces landed on the floating island in waves, but Nilo and Mara moved like a single unit. Mara struck first, her blades slicing through the attackers with swift precision. Nilo protected her from incoming energy blasts, deflecting them with his shield and sending small pulses of energy back toward the enemies. The combination of human ingenuity and Teleon combat skill caught the rivals off guard. During a brief pause in the fight, Mara wiped sweat from her brow and glanced at Nilo. "You are stronger than I imagined," she said, her voice low but sincere. Nilo felt warmth spread through his chest. "I only keep up because of you," he replied, his voice steady despite the chaos around them. The sound of wings drew their attention. A group of aerial attackers swooped down, their weapons glowing like fireflies. Nilo grabbed a small energy pulse launcher from his belt and fired, forcing them to retreat temporarily. Mara used the moment to leap high into the air, landing behind a group of enemies and taking them out before they even realized she was there. Time seemed to blur as the battle continued. The floating island shook from energy blasts, and cracks formed in the stone beneath their feet. Nilo's mind raced with calculations, figuring out how to keep the artifacts safe while fighting side by side with Mara. Every glance at her reminded him of why he had come to Zyria. She was brave, strong, and loyal, but she was also someone he admired deeply. Suddenly, one of the enemy leaders appeared, a towering figure with dark armor that shimmered with energy. It was clear this leader was more powerful than anyone they had faced. Mara's eyes narrowed, and she readied her blades. Nilo tightened his grip on the artifact, feeling its pulse grow stronger. "Human," Mara said, her voice almost a whisper. "Stay close. We must end this together." Nilo nodded. "I would not be anywhere else." They charged toward the leader, moving as one. Mara distracted the enemy with a flurry of attacks, while Nilo analyzed the leader's movements, finding weak points in the armor. With careful timing, Nilo struck at the critical joint, sending the leader stumbling back. Mara used the opening to deliver a precise strike that disarmed the opponent. The leader roared in frustration and retreated, leaving the remaining forces disorganized, breathing heavily. Nilo and Mara stood on the edge of the island, surveying the battlefield. Their allies had successfully moved the artifact to safety, and the enemy forces were in retreat. The floating island was damaged, but victory had been claimed. Mara turned to Nilo, her expression unreadable for a moment. Then, unexpectedly, a small smile curved her lips. "You truly are remarkable, human," she said softly. Nilo felt his pulse spike again, but this time it was different. It was not fear or anxiety. It was admiration and something deeper he could not quite name. "I could not have done it without you, princess," he said honestly. For a moment, they stood in silence, the glowing sky reflecting in their eyes. Nilo could see the softest hints of emotion in Mara, a mix of respect, trust, and something he could only hope was friendship growing stronger. Then Mara's eyes flicked toward the edge of the island. "Be careful," she teased lightly. Echoing the words she had said before the battle, Nilo laughed quietly, feeling the tension finally lift. "I will," he said, his voice warm, "but only because I want to stay close to you." Mara's smile grew, and for the first time, she did not hide the flicker of warmth in her eyes. "Do not get used to teasing me so freely." "Human," she said, but there was no anger, only amusement. The sun dipped below the horizon, and the stars of Zyria began to shine like scattered diamonds across the sky. Nilo and Mara stood side by side, watching the light dance on the floating islands. The battle was over, but the bond they had formed in the fire of conflict was stronger than ever. Nilo reached out and adjusted the strap of the artifact, ensuring it was secure. "We did it," he said quietly. Mara nodded. "Yes, and we will protect this world together if needed." They descended carefully to a safer platform, joining their allies. The Telion villagers cheered, recognizing the courage of the human who had fought alongside their fiercest warrior. Mara's respect for Nilo was evident, and he felt a sense of belonging he had never experienced before. Later, as the celebration continued, Mara and Nilo found a quiet spot on one of the floating islands. The wind carried the scent of alien flowers, and the stars reflected in the pools of water nearby. Nilo glanced at Mara. "You know," he said with a teasing grin, "I think you might enjoy having me around after all." Mara rolled her eyes but could not hide the smile. "Do not get ahead of yourself, human," she said. Though her tone was lighter than before, Nilo chuckled, feeling the warmth of friendship and something more blooming between them. He had come to Zyria as an outsider, a human among aliens, but he had proven that courage, intelligence, and loyalty mattered. He had made a friend, a companion, and perhaps something even deeper in Mara. The night stretched on, filled with laughter, quiet conversations, and the gentle hum of the floating islands. Nilo and Mara stood together under the starlit sky, knowing that, whatever challenges awaited them, they would face them side by side. Nilo's pulse spiked once more, but this time it was with excitement, hope. And the knowledge that he had found a bond stronger than any danger he had faced. The stars above seemed to shine brighter, reflecting the promise of adventures yet to come. In the distance, the artifact pulsed faintly, a reminder of the power they had protected and the responsibility they shared. But for now, Nilo and Mara allowed themselves a moment of peace, laughter, and the quiet thrill of connection between two worlds. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear. Together, Human and Teleon could face anything. Nilo turned to Mara, his smile steady. "Ready for the next adventure?" Mara returned the smile, her eyes glinting with determination. "Always," she said. The stars of Ziria shimmered above them, witness to the bond of courage, respect, and friendship that had grown between a human and a Telian warrior. The night carried their laughter, their shared hope, and the promise of new beginnings.